powerless? Yes?
Yes.
Have you ever felt like life is just passing you by and you're maybe powerless to change it?
Sure.
You know, there was a time in my life when I was truly powerless. Now, if you would have known me when I was growing up, you would have known a pretty ordinary looking little girl. Do we have the slides? Terrific. So if you would have known me at that age, I was a pretty ordinary looking little kid. So I can tell you that looks can often be very deceiving. If you would have actually known me at that age, you would have known a little girl that was keeping a lot of secrets. My father was a drug dealer and an alcoholic. And my little brothers and I, we feared his anger, and we feared his belt and steel-toed boots that would leave us battered and bruised more often than not. My mother was largely complacent and absent, having gone back to school full-time. And from the time that I was 6 or 7 years old, she left me to care not only for my little brothers, but for the entire household. We were surrounded by a world of drugs and alcohol, and my father had turned our backyard into an enormous illegal marijuana growing operation. Over that time, I was physically abused, I was emotionally abused, and I was sexually abused. And there is absolutely no reason that I should have turned out successful today. In fact, I'm probably one of the least likely people to be standing here in front of you today. Now, one day, when I was 17 years old, my mom and I, we got into a horrific fight. And at the end of that fight, she said, "Erika, pack your stuff, get out and go. Leave." And she kicked me out of the house. I didn't have anywhere to go, but I went to my room, I put some things in a backpack, and I walked out the front door. Now, I was raised in the East Bay, and I wandered the streets that afternoon wondering what to do. And later that night, I called back home, hoping that maybe things had calmed down enough that I could come back. But my father answered the phone, and he said, "Erika, I am no longer responsible for you. You are gone. There is no coming back." Click. And that was that. I had no job, no money, and no place to go. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit later exactly how that story ends. But what I want to share with you now is what helped me not only survive that situation, but thrive and be successful today. And at the time, I didn't even know what it was. But over years of reflection, I have put a name to it. And it's called the DARE formula. The DARE formula. D-A-R-E. And the exciting news is if you follow this formula, you are going to have the tools that you need to get from point A to point B in your life and turn your dreams into a reality. Now, the DARE formula stands for D, don't be afraid to go for it. A, ask for help. R, reinvent yourself. And E, exist in the present. We're going to go over each letter individually. You'll have plenty of time to take notes and ask questions a little bit later. So let's start with the D in the DARE formula. The D in the DARE formula. Have you ever felt like you were in a class or a job or a situation that you felt powerless to change? Well, if you follow the D in the DARE formula, you're going to be able to overcome that. And the D stands for don't be afraid to go for it. Don't be afraid to go for it. Now, if you would have known me in 2004, you would have known me working as a press secretary for the California State Legislature. It was a crazy job in the world of politics and a very busy job, and I was working specifically to help get one particular assembly member reelected. And the good news is that I was successful at that. She was reelected. But when that election cycle was over, I knew one thing, and I knew it absolutely for sure. And that was that I was done with politics. Now, have you guys ever heard the phrase that politics is a dirty business? Yeah? Well, believe me, I am here standing here today telling you it is absolutely true. It's a crazy, crazy industry. And it was actually the first time in my public relations career that I really felt disingenuous about what I was putting out there, not only to the public, but to the media. And to make matters worse, the assembly member that I was representing at the time, she was not doing what she was saying, either publicly or privately. It was an incredibly awkward situation. And I knew I had to make some sort of change. And at the time, I knew that I had two choices. I knew that I could go back to work for a Silicon Valley PR agency and work 70, 80 hours a week for somebody else and make pretty close to a six-figure income. Or I could do something different. But what that something different was, I didn't really know. So I thought about it. And I thought about it really hard for the next 3 months. And over that time, I came to realize a couple of things. I realized what I did not want. I did not want to work 70 to 80-hour work weeks. I did not want to commute from the Bay Area to Sacramento several times a week. I wanted a job where I felt like I was helping people, because in the world of politics, I didn't feel that at all. The problem was, I knew that none of those things came with any job that I knew in corporate America. So what was I supposed to do? Well, one day, I was visiting my friend Kristen. Kristen and I were good friends, and she was actually going back to school to finish her nursing degree, and she had just had a beautiful baby girl. So I was over at her house, and we were visiting and playing with the baby and hanging out in the living room, and I said to her, Kristen, I've got an idea. And she looked at me with this look on her face like, oh no, what is Erika concocted now? And I said to her, Kristen, I think I'm going to start my own business. Now Kristen looked up and she said to me, Erika, don't you know that 80% of new businesses fail in their first 2 years? Well, to be completely honest, I did not know that statistic at the time. But I will tell you, it made me extremely committed to be one of the other 20%. Now, the thought of starting a business was really overwhelming. I'd never been a business owner before, and I really didn't know where to begin. But that day, I remember back to the 3rd grade, and my 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Colbert. Now, Mrs. Colbert was an absolute spitfire. She would walk around the classroom with this wooden ruler in her hand, and it would come smashing down on your desk if she found you not paying attention. Scared me to death. Now, Mrs. Colbert taught me a lot of things in the 3rd grade. She taught me what the word procrastination meant. And Mrs. Colbert also taught me how to make a list to keep track of my assignments and my other projects. So I decided, since a list had always worked for me in the past, that I would make a list again to get me started. So I asked Kristen, my friend, for a notepad and paper, and I went out to her backyard, and I sat down by the pool, and I started to make a list of the things that I did want for my business. I wrote down that I only wanted to work 40 to 50-hour work weeks. I wrote down that I wanted my company not to have any commute. In fact, I wanted to make it completely virtual if I could, so it could be run from anywhere. I also wrote down that I wanted to work with small businesses, because small businesses, in my opinion, often needed the PR the most, but could afford it the least. So I knew that if I could help small business owners, I'd really be doing something good and helping people. And I wrote a few other things down on that list. And I took it back to Kristen and gave it to her, and she read it, and she looked up at me and she said, Erika, if you could make this happen, it would be amazing. And that was the encouragement that I needed to go for it. There was one problem. I was afraid. I was really afraid. I had all these negative thoughts running through my head, like, what if I let my family down? What if I don't make enough income to support us? What if I can't do this and end up being one of those 80%? But despite my fears, in June of 2005, 3 Girls Media and Marketing was born. Now, starting a company was still pretty overwhelming. And I thought, since a list had helped me out already, I was going to use it again. So this time, I made a list of short-term goals, things that I could do that would help me get the business off the ground. And this list included things like finding somebody to host my website. I knew that I had the right copy for that website. I knew that I needed to order business cards and research a business banking account and HR and liability and things like that. I also knew that I needed to join some networking groups because I needed to spread the word about my business. Now, one of the networking groups that I ended up joining for my business and to spread the word is an organization called NABO. And NABO stands for the National Association of Women Business Owners. Now this group was an amazing find to me because these were all women business owners. They had been there and done that. So I could look up to them. And I knew that since they were already successful in their businesses, that these were women that could support me, that I could look to for advice and for guidance as I was trying to launch my business and get it off the ground. And that's exactly what happened. Now today, I sit on the board of directors for the National Association of Women Business Owners, and I'm their marketing director. And it's my way of giving back a little bit to the organization that gave me so much when I was starting out in business and trying to get my company off the ground. Now, the way the list supported me, and the way the list will support you, is by breaking things down into small tasks so you can get from your point A to your point B and make your dreams become a reality. Now, there's nothing particularly special about me. Nothing really special about me at all. But the list is special. The list is the gist of how I got it done. And the list is the gist of how you will make your dreams come true as well. Now, the first female White House press secretary, Dee Dee Myers, she said, women have to know what they're getting into. We have to have their own credentials to let people know what they've accomplished. What we bring to the table is important. What women bring to the table is important. So what are you going to bring to the table this year? What are you going to do to reach your dreams this year? Now, I want you to take a minute and close your eyes. Go ahead and close your eyes. And I want you to imagine if you could have your ideal life 12 months from now. What would that look like? What is your perfect picture in 1 year? Think about that for a second. Go ahead and open your eyes. So what did you see? Did you see yourself spending more time with your friends and your family? Did you see yourself investing more time in your hobbies, your pastimes? Maybe you saw yourself changing majors or a career path. Whatever that is, you can do it if you aren't afraid to go for it. If you follow the D in the DARE formula and don't be afraid to go for it. Now, I want you to look at your handout. And on your handout, the first section is listing the top 3 things that you want to do to change your life and go for it this year. Take a minute, we're going to take just a couple minutes for you to write down on your handout that big picture that you were thinking of with your eyes closed. What would that ideal life look like 12 months from now? What things would you change in order to go for it in your life? Take a minute and write those down. Okay, great. Is everybody about done? Terrific. Now, when you get home this afternoon, I want you to make a commitment to yourself. I want you to pick one thing off of that list, just one. And I want you to commit to yourself to go for it. Don't be afraid to face your fears and follow the D in the DARE formula and go for it. Be a daredevil. You can be the daredevil of your own life because you have the power to change your life. It's within you. You have the power to change your life. And it starts with the list. The list is the gist of how to get it done. Now, you've already begun that list right now, and you can continue building out that list when you get home later today. It's the list that will help keep you on track and get you from where you are right now to the point where your dreams are coming true. The list is the gist of how to get it done. So what comes after the D in the DARE formula? Well, it's the A, of course. And the A in the DARE formula stands for ask for help. Ask for help. Now, have you ever been in a situation where you've known somebody who is maybe either so painfully shy or perhaps overconfident that they were afraid to ask for help? You know the kind of people I'm talking about, right? Well, those are the kind of people that seem to stagnate in their lives and don't get any farther in what they want to do. And I don't know about you guys, but I'd rather keep growing in my life. And that comes from asking for help. Now, I have found, in particular, that women sometimes seem to have a really difficult time asking for help. Let's see a show of hands if you've ever found it difficult to ask for help. All right, well, look around the room. You are certainly not alone. Definitely not alone. This is something that can be overcome. You can learn to ask for help. Now, I'm going to be very vulnerable with you for a minute. And I will tell you that if you would have seen me on this stage many years ago, you would have seen a lot more of me. In fact, at one point in my life, I weighed 400 pounds.
Wow.
A little bit better today?
Yes.
A little bit? Well, I will tell you that when I weighed 400 pounds, I was having some very serious health issues. I had my gallbladder removed, I had my appendix removed, and I was pre-diabetic. And I didn't feel good. My joints hurt, I had no energy, and I generally felt not well. One day, I was at my doctor's office for a checkup, and he sat down at his desk, and he looked me straight in the eye, and he said, "Erika, if you do not get this weight off of you, you are not going to live to see your son graduate high school." He was in kindergarten at the time. That was like a brick in the head to me. I broke down bawling in my doctor's office. I was crying uncontrollably. I had tried everything to lose weight on my own. You name it, I had tried. Nutrisystem, Atkins, Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, shakes, bars, the grapefruit diet, throwing up, starving myself, you name it, I had done it for years. And every single time, I would lose weight. And then I would gain it back, plus more, until I ended up unhealthy at 400 pounds. Now that day in my doctor's office, when I broke down crying, I begged him for help. I knew that I was powerless to change it on my own. I tried. For years I tried. So I begged him, please, isn't there something that you can do to help me? Now the good news is that he and a team of specialists did come to my aid. And I am here healthy and vibrant and well today, and no longer 400 pounds, because I asked for help. So what about you? Is there something in your life where you can ask for help? You know, one of the ways that you can ask for help is by having a mentor. A mentor is an advisor, somebody who can help guide you and support you in your dreams as you try to reach them this year. And a mentor can be anybody. A mentor can be a friend, it can be a family member, it can be a teacher, it can be a business colleague. A mentor can be anyone that can support you in your dreams and help you get from your point A to your point B. Now, something else that can act like a mentor is a book. I read a lot in my life. And one of the books that acted kind of like a mentor to me is a book called Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. And it's by Dr. Lois Frankel. And in her book, Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office, Dr. Frankel identifies behaviors that we actually learn in girlhood that affect us as grown women today. And she points out why some women seem to roar ahead in their careers and why others seem to stagnate. And she also provides a set of tools that you can use to help unlearn those behaviors that we learned in girlhood that often sabotage us as women. It was a terrific mentor for me. And I'll tell you, I also brought 25 other mentors with me today. 25. And they're in my book. It's called The Spirit of Silicon Valley, Journeys and Transformations Beyond Technology. Now, in this book, I gathered stories from 25 newsmakers and entrepreneurs right here in Silicon Valley. Every single one of them had some sort of trial or tribulation or obstacle to overcome. And every single one of them, whether it took them months or years, eventually decided to go for it and made their dreams come true. And I guarantee you that along the way, after they decided to go for it, that they asked for help to get them where they are. Now this book is pretty motivational, and it's also very inspirational. And because of that, The Spirit of Silicon Valley actually became a bestseller. And if you'd like, I'll have copies of this available for you to pick up after the talk today. So what about you and a mentor? Can you think of somebody in your life that can act as a mentor for you as you try to reach those big picture goals this year? Let's go back to your handout. And this time, I want you to take a minute to write down the names of 2 or 3 people that can possibly act as a mentor for you this year. Go ahead and write them down.